This is Z-Sides.
Hello, and welcome back to the WINO studios in Anytown, USA for a very special edition of Z-Sides. We just put out the episode on Local Nothing, and we had referenced at the end of that episode that we had an interview with Riley, the artist who is Local Nothing. So we'd spoken to Riley. I'd reached out to him online, and after got back to me, which was awesome, and we started going back and forth, and I asked about an interview to answer some questions because we had many questions.
We had many questions.
A lot of questions. He agreed to do just like a over Discord interview. Didn't want his face on cam and stuff, all stuff I understand. But regardless, we have answers.
So to be clear, Zach interviewed him via text. I have no idea what Riley said. I know most of the questions Zach asked. I don't know all of them. But I've been waiting weeks now for answers.
I've been torturing Pat with...
So I'm in your boat, people at home, and I really need these answers.
So kind of getting a background of what exactly, how this all started.
Okay.
So it says, I'm gonna go back in time just a little. I briefly used to have a two-piece keyboard and drums band with my friend, but that didn't make it very far and was slowly fizzling out. So in late 2015, I started Title It Yourself as a solo project to experiment with songwriting. And we had put a little bit of that stuff in the episode. Fast forward now to 2018. He says he missed having a band and he wanted a way to combine the art that we talked about with the music. So he had some songs sitting around that didn't really fit in with the sound that he was doing on Title It Yourself. Those two kind of sound a little different. There's like a different attitude to it. So I decided I was gonna make my own little cartoon band where I can write and play everything and make art for it. Kind of lay dormant for some years while I brainstormed, so it didn't really take fruition until 2021, after I quit my job and had a bunch of free time. Then I wrote Broken Reflection, and later the self-titled EP. I wanted them to intentionally sound awful and chaotic at first, but then I decided I wanted people to actually listen to them. So immediately, question number one answered. Broken Reflection was an attack on people's eardrums.
And it answers so many questions. Already, off the bat.
I toyed with a bunch of different lineups until I settled on these made-up hybrid creatures I had drawn and realized they would fit perfectly with the wacky sound. In a way, it was also an excuse to help me improve at guitar as well, since primarily he's a keyboard player. So it was interesting because the guitar playing is sloppy, but I would say pretty good for someone who says they don't know how to play guitar.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to judge. He seems proficient at guitar.
He says now I can actually sort of play the thing, which I would strongly agree with.
Yeah, I'd give him that.
The difference between the two projects, he says that he sees Title It Yourself as more of an experimental songwriting diary, and Local Nothing is more of a passion project.
Okay.
So it's for fun, for joy. Both are still current projects, but Title It Yourself has been kind of set to the side for the moment since I've been having more fun and more ideas with Local Nothing, and I'm currently almost done working on their next album.
Is it full length? Did he say?
It just says next album. I don't think I followed up. There's new Local Nothing on the way at some point.
I'm sure that like like us, everyone out there is overjoyed.
Everyone's super ecstatic.
Marking on their calendar.
It's interesting though, because in the episode you had talked about you would like to see what he could do if he took the sound and kind of took more time to develop it because of those nuggets and kind of take it.
And dial back some of the, intentional, the broken reflection stuff. while very interesting, kind of lingers throughout. I think if he dials that, the intentional sloppiness back and has just the actual, any actual sloppiness, I think that's enough. But, to a degree, I don't want it to stop being Local Nothing.
So this could be it because Title It Yourself is a little more serious, but it is also very raw and sloppy to a degree. Not as sloppy, more so just like raw. So this could, because he said he's kind of making the shift from Broken Reflection era to a little more of like, if we get a great amount of anythings or Sheepy and Moo-Moos,
Honda Civics.
Yeah, we'll be good. Maybe with less 2-minute outros.
Did you mention that to him at any point? Like, hey,
I don't think so.
like, just hey, small critique. Why do all of your songs have crazy long outros?
Again, I think no matter how much, he starts to lean towards listenable,
yeah,
I think the Local Nothing in its DNA is to mess with the listener, at least to some degree. It's kind of like played for a joke, and the joke is
that
you're listening to it. Yeah. So more on Broken Reflection. So I asked, when coming up with Broken Reflection, how did you go about that? How does one conceptualize a song like that? And then I said, you touched about this. Tell me a bit about the band. Is there some sort of lore to them, or are they just a way to incorporate the visual art style? And at certain points in some of your songs, Broken Reflection and a great amount of anything, are you playing children's toys? So Broken Reflection. I don't really remember what inspired that one. I think I was really into the Shags.
Keep going.
Jandek, who I've never heard of. I'll have to look them up and
Jandek.
Insert like a clip or something here.
Great man above the clouds. Woo!
And other various outsider artists during that time. So very much leaning into the outsider music aspect of it, which is cool. That whole song is honestly just garbled nonsense because I really wanted to write something chaotic, which in turn ended up being one of the songs I've had the most fun ever working on.
I mean, I have to imagine it was fun to make, right? I mean, it can't not be.
When writing, I'll use FL Studio, and sometimes I'll just throw random notes into the piano roll to get some interesting melodies going. And I'll grab an instrument and try to learn it and change whatever accordingly to make sure it's playable.
Okay.
So I'm guessing that means changing the tunings to different things as it goes by. Other times I'll noodle around on an instrument and then map out my idea on the piano roll when I come up with something like that. Then I use the MIDI tracks for demos when working out ideas and as a guide for when I go to record. I don't always do it for every song, but 9 times out of 10, I will, because then I can pull up the piano roll and view the notes later if I want to relearn how to play it. Though sometimes I'll improvise and change parts while recording. So it's very loose.
Yeah. I mean, I would have imagined.
I like to write my vocal melodies out that way, because otherwise I can't really sing for
All right.
I record everything on my old iPhone from 2015, which is why everything comes out so lo-fi.
Yes.
Drums are especially hard to record with just one phone mic, and I always have to fight with the mix. I also have an old tape deck I used for Title It Yourself, but it's sort of broken and even more of a hassle to record with, so I just stick to the iPhone since there's usually way more going on in these songs compared to my other project.
I will say the tape deck recording, from what I haven't listened to a lot of Title It Yourself, but what I have listened to, I would say the recording quality sounds better on the tape deck, or at least more.
It's got
warmth,
got that,
I guess.
Yes, the warmth. It's got the character to it. It's like a softer, Local Nothing is kind of, it's got sharp edges, hard
It's
edges.
it's very much got that sharp digital sound, whereas the analog hum and hiss really helps the sound that he has.
It gives it a little more, like, it's rounding the edges on a sound that is a lot to deal with as a listener. As for the band,
The lore.
Local Nothing is Borden, he, him, on vocals and guitar. Lowell, they, them, or I don't know if it's Lowell. Lowell, they, them, on vocals and keyboards. So there's multiple singers. We have a Beatles Blink-182 situation here.
Yeah.
Fraley, he, they on bass, and Silas, he, they on drums and percussion. And we have artwork of all four of them that we put in the episode, and I'm sure we'll put up here.
Yeah.
They all can kind of play more than just their designated instruments, so sometimes the song will be more of a collaborative effort, which is why sometimes a song won't have bass, or there'll be an extra keyboard, glockenspiel, etc. They live together in an old house in Michigan, in the city of Parkston, and they like to collect antiques, frequent thrift stores, urbex, go on road trips, and just hang out and write silly songs. So they seem
Just bros being bros.
a good old American indie rock band.
Just hanging out, doing urban exploring, buying antiques, and recording Broken Reflection.
In middle America. Right now, I guess it's more of a visual thing since they're still kind of a work in progress because I haven't had much time to properly sit down and work on them. The comic aspect of it is interesting because there's one particular in the artwork that he sent
Talk
us.
about the tiny car one.
Yes, that was really good.
It almost feels like there's missing panels, like there's one more, like there's a second punchline.
For the instruments, the main glockenspiel you hear is this little Fisher-Price toy I got from the antique store years ago. And I love it because it's in a half tuning for some reason. So instead of being in C or C flat, it's in like C half flat. So I'll tune all the other instruments to be in micro tuning to match it.
Oh my god.
You work in the means that you have, because this is a great lesson for anybody who's creative.
Yeah.
If you have a restriction, embrace it. It becomes a part of the character of your thing instead of fighting it. You can't fight it. It's not going to go away.
Zach, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
This is not in reference to a discussion that Pat and I had before we started filming this.
No, we only work with the highest quality equipment in a large, spacious studio. That's incredible. I didn't think we were going to get into microtones this quick, but here we are, and I'm here for it.
I don't like pitch correcting because I use Audacity, and for some reason it subtly distorts the sound quality. Of course, you use Audacity. Audacity is the classic. The glockenspiel is actually a part of Silas's drum set, to answer your earlier question, as well as various pots and other household items, which I don't remember hearing, so I'm gonna have to go back and listen.
There's definitely some clunky noises that I'm pretty sure were people thinking they were children's instruments besides they were other children's instruments besides just the Fisher-Price glockenspiel, which of course it's Fisher-Price. Of course it is. It's the Gretsch of children's brands. I there are things now that I'm registering. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Now I'm knowing it's a pot pan.
I have a good handful of vintage toy instruments that I got from the antique store and various old Casios from eBay. The keyboard in a great amount of anything is mainly the SA7 and a little bit of the CA110. They both have pretty much the same tones.
Okay.
I had to layer the CA10 over top of the SA7 because the original recording was incredibly lo-fi in the worst way. And we have pictures of the gear.
The keyboard? Oh,
Yep.
man.
So this is the SA7. That's some of Local Nothing's gear right there.
That's beautiful. I can't wait to show the world these.
Yep, we'll pop that up.
Okay.
It's your classic.
It's just sitting on his Cintiq too. I assume it's a Cintiq. I don't know what tablet he uses.
It's old. Like, look at the wood is like
yeah,
the
it's like,
paint is gone.
I mean, he said he got an antique store and
Yeah.
it looks like it.
It looks like it's at least 40 years old.
That lead paint has to be all.
Yeah.
Riley, take care of yourself and use that thing.
So he obviously knows a lot about making music. I mean, there's a lot of
Yes.
knowledge behind it. I asked if he had any formal training or education and asked about some of the biggest influences.
This is one of mine.
I'm all self-taught. Never went to school, never had lessons. I can't read or write music. I learned by ear and Google. I've only been musically active since 2012, and I'm still learning things. The only other person I know of in my family with a musical background is my uncle, who I also believe is self-taught, but we never really talk to each other.
It's incredible that he's figured out the microtonality of a Fisher-Price glockenspiel and is like, I can't read music.
Local Nothing is kind of the perfect poster child for this show.
Yeah.
It's proof that anybody can make music, anybody can put it out there. If you have a modicum of talent, if you have a tiny little bit of talent, you can make something that is interesting, worth talking about, that us two are going to listen to.
A lot of Local Nothing feels like you skipped the fundamentals and jumped to, you skipped walking or you skipped crawling and went to running in a lot of ways. Like the micro tonality, the rhythms that are polyrhythmic, whether or not they're traditionally, traditionally polyrhythmic. I don't know what that means, but like it's where it is that line of, is this polyrhythmic or is this just incorrectly timed? Is this out of key or is this in a key that I don't understand because it's microtonal? It's a lot of that where it's like, where is the line?
It does sound like what you would make if you were dropped in a 400 level music writing course
And
you skipped the 1 through 300 levels.
Yeah. This is kind of the way I thought was more likely to go, but just hearing the granularity of his music knowledge that again skips other things, like being able to read basic music, like that he can't do that, and again, but he's figured out the tuning of, I guess you can use a tuner to figure out the pitch of the glockenspiel, but he did that, but he still doesn't know how to read music, and he's kind of been able to put words to the microtonality of the glockenspiel. Because I would just say, like, if it was me trying to figure out it, I'd go, that's just out of tune, and move on. But he didn't do that, and that's what we love about him.
Influences.
Yes.
The most foundational for me starting out were early Matt and Kim,
Okay.
Mates of State, Horse the Band, early Front Bottoms, Into It, Over It, and the Microphones. So a lot of those make sense. I don't know all of these. Some later influences include Deerhoof.
I don't know Deerhoof.
Deerhoof makes a lot of sense. You should listen to some Deerhoof.
Okay.
They might even be eligible for Z-sides.
Oh man,
Yeah.
future episode on Deerhoof.
On Deerhoof. Shoo Shoo, Alex G, Algernon Cadwallader, early Hopalong, Math the Band, Fox Academy, and Modest Mouse. So Caleb nailed it on the head.
Yeah, when he said early
Nailed it
Modest
on the
Mouse.
head when he said early Modest Mouse.
Real quick, I'm trying to remember. He was talking about Broken Reflection.
He's talking
though.
about the middle portion of Broken Reflection, which after re-listening to it and timing it up when we were cutting the episode together, I was like, oh, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it is probably before. He said that's a later influence, though, so maybe it was subconscious Modest Mouse.
Yeah, because, he could later be influenced by early Modest Mouse.
Yes.
Because it doesn't sound like Dashboard.
No.
Nothing sounds like Dashboard.
No, it's no lampshades on. It's not. We're not floating on.
Some stuff that inspired Local Nothing specifically.
Okay.
Whether it be sounds or vibes. No, it sounds like the music.
Oh, okay.
Stuff like Beat Happening, The Shags, and Jandek, who we already talked about. Cardiacs, Kate Ferencz, I'm gonna guess that's Ferencz. I'm gonna say that's Ferencz.
Okay.
And Little Teeth. Most of these I don't know.
Is he just pitching episodes for us?
At this point, I think so. We're gonna have to check out this Jandek. I draw a lot of inspiration from outsider music, avant-garde and experimental music, lo-fi, folk, synth pop, synth punk, indie rock, noise rock, math rock, and Midwest emo. All things that you could kind of gather.
I think most of those we said at some point in the, in talking about it. I think I specifically said that lyrically, I said if you heard those lyrics in a Midwest emo song, you'd be like, yeah, that's fine.
I'm also just inspired by random everyday sounds like the noise the fridge makes, the fan running, the car alarm going off, the little ting noise the lid makes when you set it down.
The droning, the fridge and the fan. I mean, it's all coming together.
I'm wondering. I don't think I asked. I'm wondering if they sampled the fridge. I want to talk about the tags on the Bandcamp page, which we referenced in the episode.
What does yellow mean? Okay.
So yeah, stuff like curse music, nonsense, awful. Had questions about yellow, and then also we get into the furry and the queer stuff.
Yeah.
I mentioned that it caught my eye because of the whole car seat headrest thing. I mentioned that background. Sometimes I'm just feeling silly, I guess, and tag random things. I honestly forgot I did that, so it's extremely funny to me that you brought it up. I think the yellow tag might have been in reference to something on the album art.
Okay.
Which...
That's fine. I kind of thought it would be something like that.
But that's... See, yellow to me is like, how Ween, a lot of their music is described as brown.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be something like that, where it's some characteristic of the music.
Yeah, like blue and blues.
As for the other tags, I've been active here and there on furry Twitter for quite some time now, and it felt kind of fitting to tag. I identify as gay and queer, and I try to portray that through my art sometimes. I guess I forgot to mention that the members of Local Nothing also identify as gay and queer to various degrees, as my characters tend to be kind of an extension of parts of me. It was one of those things, like, it was hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
We knew.
It's just another little fascinating little intricacy, and of course, I think you and I kind of said it before, like, gay queer artists are they're just artists. That's pretty run of the mill. The furry is a little bit more, you can't shake a stick in the recording industry without hitting queer people. Furries are there's less representation
relative to the population of America.
Yeah.
It's a small percentage of the population. It's a smaller group of people, and those smaller groups of people tend to congregate and share the things that they're interested in, which is, it's kind of like the punk scene in a way, where, hey, I'm into this stuff, and then all of a sudden you start connecting all these dots and going down all these rabbit holes. And I think what that does is it's breeding its own sound subgenre scene. Yeah, is the perfect way. And what's really interesting about it is that scene is on the internet now. I mean, if you go to Local Nothing, I did this when we were first discovering them. I just started looking at, there's recommended bands on the Bandcamp page, who a couple of them are also members of the furry community, artists in the furry community. And then like a bunch of other stuff came down, and I just started listening to random stuff. And I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there was one album in particular, I can't remember what it's called, but all the reviews were like, oh, this is like the most, the best representation of what it's like to be a member of the
furry community.
Community. And I was listening to it, and I'm like, I can relate to this. There's nothing inherently furry about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very much human problems. It's not so hyper specific that it's just locking people out. I think
Yeah.
this is very much there is a wave. There is a fuzzy wave of future musicians kind of coming up right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much, art comes from internalized feelings at the end of the day. And I think if you feel othered in some way, obviously the first thing you do is internalize that. And then you have to externalize that. And if you have the outlet of music or any art form really, that's going to come out in your music or your art. And so they're taking the feeling of being othered, which is obviously I would have to imagine is probably very great for furries, as they're, it's not a very widely common thing. So I have to imagine there's a great feeling of otherness for them. But the feeling of otherness is intrinsic to, I'd say, most people in some way. You can feel othered for any number of reasons. So when the energy they're putting out is why they feel different, why they feel pushed away, why they feel othered, and you said like, oh, I could relate to it. I think most people can relate to it in some way.
It translates well. It translates well to just kind of emo music, because I think there happens to be a lot of just crossover for whatever reason. We should mention that when we found out that Local Nothing was a furry band, it triggered laughing reactions from us, and we should kind of explain why that is. It's because of the type of the music, and kind of as you continue to peel back the layers, you can't make this up. Just the fact that you find out a new thing and then you discover, oh, they're furries, I never would have guessed that until you kind of piece the things together. And
it was fun. We did kind of gradually come to that realization. Basically, it was like I think we were looking at the art and wondering, are they, is this a furry band? And then I think I can't remember,
found the tags.
Was it the tags?
Yeah.
And we're like, that's okay. But it was gradual. It was very gradual. Like we
connected the dots very much.
Yeah. The dots were there to be connected. They were there, and but we had the fun of connecting the obvious dots.
And that's precisely what I wanted to get at, is that the act of discovery. I mean, that's one of the things that, we really want to foster with the show, is that there's a lot to discover about musicians, especially ones who are smaller, who are out there. And the reason that I bring up, why, the fact that it's translatable to people who are not furries, and the fact that, we kind of found it weird and in a way funny, through the discovery process. But the point that I want to make is that, like I said, there is a fuzzy wave, and it's going to become more common moving forward. It is very much an underground scene, but there's a lot of really good music that these people are making in their bedroom, on the internet. I mean, again, Car Seat Headrest has, I don't know, at least 500,000 unique monthly listeners now, putting out acclaimed rock albums that a ton of people love, selling out, moderately sized venues, going to, big music festivals. It's just the start of...
I don't have a reason to believe this, but I don't feel like they would feel like, oh no, you're taking our culture, our furry culture. I think they would be, pretty cool with, as long as you're supportive, as long as you're, don't, as much as it might sound like sometimes we're making fun of the music, we're not, we love it.
I don't know how to describe it exactly, but we genuinely do enjoy it, even if that joy is from like a different angle than, like, I don't listen to Local Nothing like I listen to like Pet Sounds.
Yeah, it's not. It's not an ambient listen.
It's very much, you listen to Local Nothing in the same way. It's very much like
the highest praise I can possibly give is it's like listening to an Arnold Schoenberg atonal concerto. It is to mentally challenge yourself. It's to push your boundaries. It is to think of music in a different way than strictly pleasant sound for your ears.
I was also going to say it's kind of the Local Nothing is a great example of exactly what I have been dying to show off in some form or another on the internet, which is the sort of roomification of music, in the 80s or so. Even back in the 50s, as film became a more popular medium.
Yeah.
You had the birth of B movies, which was just, hey, let's slap this together for super cheap. And then you get into like the 80s and 90s, and then you have VHS tapes, which makes them, mass marketable very cheaply.
You get shot on film.
You get shot on tape. Yep.
Shot on tape.
You get shot on tape. You get shot on video. And all of a sudden you have Carl and his friends, shooting things, or like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the kids who over like a decade did a shot-for-shot remake of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
Like, that's awesome. But all that to say is like, this is kind of that same thing where B movies are very popular. If you go on YouTube, you'll find hundreds of people talking about, I watched this movie and ha ha ha, it's funny. And we're looking at it through that same sort of lens, which is, it's funny because it's so out there, but it's charming.
Yeah.
It's not just bad.
Yeah.
It is charming.
Yes, and it is interesting and it is different. Where to compare it to cheese, it might be moldy, but it's interesting. It is an aged moldy cheese. It is not processed Velveeta.
There you go. Yeah, that's a great analogy. I love that. A little more about the band I forgot to include. Part of the reason they're so sloppy and chaotic is because they initially all swapped instruments and chose one they didn't typically play,
Okay.
though they've gotten better at them now in recent years. Borden played drums and bass, Lowell played acoustic guitar and ukulele, Silas played keyboard and piano. Fraley was only recently added to the band, also plays keyboard and sings. Fraley also doesn't actually own a bass and either uses Borden's acoustic bass that plugs into the amp or borrows one from someone. Like I said, there's a lot of lore.
It's funny that his lore isn't, so like, the obvious comparison is like Gorillaz. Gorillaz' lore is a narrative about them doing things. His lore is much more, this is why this instrument sounds like this. It is very much like just to explain things in the music versus like, oh, this is their day job and he does this and they do this. It's interesting and I like it.
It's more interesting, I would say, than the Gorillaz sort of aspect or angle to it, because what it is, it's real. It's the way that Riley's describing it. It just kind of sounds like your friend's band that in high school. This is just what happened to them.
Yeah.
It's just Kyle doesn't have a bass, so he's got to borrow Dave's from down the street.
I wonder how much of this is, autobiographical of like, oh, I don't have a bass. I have this weird bass, I guess, that I have an acoustic bass that I can plug into an amp.
I'm guessing that's very much the case.
I'm guessing too.
Fraley was supposed to be part of the original lineup. This is in an artistic way, a behind-the-scenes way. He was in earlier concepts, but was scrapped for a bit while exploring the sound, since Riley was getting overwhelmed having to write so many instrument parts. He was trying to find ways to simplify things.
Okay.
Another thing I wanted to talk about is the vocals, which
Yeah.
I think everybody mentioned in the reaction, and it jumps right out at you.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be funny to have the two that can't sing for be on vocal duty and have them both sound the same. I liked how bands like Modern Baseball, Wolfie, The Shags, and early Dear Nora had two vocalists that both sounded the same and you can barely distinguish the two. Borden usually does lead vocals, and I try to make my voice a little more nasally and higher for him. Lowell usually sings the lower harmonies, but has occasional lead vocals sometimes. 30 Interesting Cases of Lost Media, for example, as well as a few tracks from the upcoming album.
Okay.
It's very subtle though, because it's really hard to make your voice sound different when you're already not very vocally talented to begin with.
I hear it. Like, I can register it. It does make sense. So when the vocals are, I don't want to say better, but better, you know, less nasally and pitchy, does he explain who that is? Which of the personas?
Lowell.
Lowell. So Lowell's the good vocalist.
Borden usually does lead vocals nasally and higher. Lowell sings lower harmonies.
Okay. I thought he said that there were the other ones were like secretly good singers, or and then they don't sing?
Apparently the two singers can't sing.
Okay.
So the other two can apparently sing, but they don't. All right, so that's all that Riley had to say.
Thank you so much for finally sharing all that with me. A lot of things were things we'd put together on our own, but a lot of surprises in there. I mean, it's nice having a friend in this right now.
It's nice to have answers too.
Answers.
Because there's going to be a lot of times where we don't get answers.
And you guys will have to live with that, like we will. Yeah, it is nice having answers. It's nice knowing there's more music coming. I'm just glad he wanted to talk to us.
Yeah. Thank you so much to Riley for taking the time to speak with us.
Thanks for the art. We appreciate you letting us use the art.
We're super excited to see or to hear the new album whenever that's coming out. So that's all that we got for now.
New episode coming soon, as always. We've always got something in the pipeline.
All right. It's a wrap.
All right. Well, I guess
Where are you going?
I don't know. I'm gonna go listen to Jandek, I guess.
Okay.
This is so sad.
This is a song that I feel like I would listen to, like, just parked on the side of a highway, just like having a bad time.
He's very talented, like lyrically. I don't think I'd ever find myself listening to this on my own.
In the best way possible. It's like if Munford and Sons got Gene's keyboard from Bob's Burgers.
Oh no. Oh no. Have all these songs been about SpongeBob?